I really thought that a change to a road name would really be the difference maker here in Kansas City. But alas, it is not meant to be. Good morning, 604. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So, shocking news, disappointing news, earth-shattering news. Troost Avenue will not become Truth Avenue.
How dare you?
I know. We were all sitting here hoping that we would have the name change to Troost Avenue and we could get that racist out of a Kansas City major thoroughfare. But for now, we'll have to move on with Troost Avenue, John.
It was going to be Truth Avenue?
Yes.
That's what I called it when I was 7 and I'd lost my front teeth. Grandma lives down by Truth.
Well, you know what? We could have all been calling it Truth if a couple of council members had their way. Really just one. Melissa Robinson, 3rd District, had been pushing for this for a very long time. And there was an activist element in the community that also wanted to change the name of Troost Avenue to Truth Avenue. But for a second straight year, Quentin Lucas has blocked the measure to change the street's name, proposing that the measure be placed on indefinite hold so officials can study the issue more and consider other possible names. This is the most government nonsensical BS answer you could possibly have. Now, I appreciate what the mayor's doing. I do. But the notion that he's blocking it so we can study the issue more, please, City Council, don't spend 7 seconds studying the issue. You realize you have massive problems on your hand, and the last thing that you should be doing is spending a minute on changing the name of Troost Avenue to Truth Avenue.
They're studying this and reparations probably around the same.
Yeah, they should be done with this by like 2030 or so. That's right. They are still, whatever. Gosh, it's been almost 2 years since I did that panel where there was supposed to be like an 18-month study on reparations in this town. But I don't know what's going on with that. Now you got my wheels spinning there, Mark. Jeez, that's not how this is supposed to go, but nice job there. So the mayor's saying that we are going to put this off to the side because, yes, we have never solved any type of issue by changing a street name. We just haven't done it. And, I saw a lot of people commenting on the article in the Kansas City Star and talking about Troost and slaves and racism, and somebody, goes on to bring up Harry Truman. And Harry Truman, in his early days, did have racist tendencies. He also was a man who saw the error in his ways and decided that he was going to improve as a man, as a person, and obviously became the president and a historical figure from the standpoint of hopefully bringing this country on the right track and trying to direct this country on the right path when it comes to race relations, despite his early history. People can change. And people should not be defined by the worst of what they believed and who they were. That's something that we've talked about going back to 2020 when everyone was going to have, their statue torn down and we were going to cancel everybody and anybody. So that moment is gone. People are over it. First off, it does nothing for anybody who lives on Troost. Nobody is being held back by the name of a street sign, okay? And if you're getting triggered by the name of a street sign, then the problem is the man or the woman in the mirror. It's that simple. The problem is not and has never been the name itself. So this thing is going to be tabled. Thank goodness for that. And we move on. But it's amazing that we're still here. I mean, there was a time in 2020 when we were changing street names. We were taking Aunt Jemima off the syrup bottle. Uncle Ben got the boot as well. The Land O'Lakes Indian also, goodbye to her. But, of course, we kept the land. Very American of us. Kept the land, kicked the Indian off it. So that time has come and gone. And now you have a city council in this town that did not want to move the ball forward for a second straight year on renaming Troost Avenue to Truth Avenue. 913-408-7957 is how you join us. not to take you too much behind the scenes, I don't like to do that typically, but we cannot read your text as of right now because there is no internet in this building. So the best way to interact with us is the phones, the old school way. You can't hit me up on social media right now. We got the crack engineering staff coming in here to fix everything, but the phones will be the best way for the foreseeable future to get a hold of us this morning on 95.7 FM. Now, speaking of things happening in Kansas City, Mayor Lucas is sounding the alarm on recent KCPD settlements. The mayor is saying that police settlements are straining the city budgets, and now he's calling on the state to help pay up. This is from Fox 4 here. The Board of Police Commissioners recently agreed to a $14 million settlement with Ricky Kidd, the man wrongly convicted of a 1996 murder. He spent more than 2 decades in prison before being exonerated. Through email, KCPD said that they were not familiar with conversations Lucas had with Missouri about legal costs. And you've also got a quote here in a news release where Lucas said they paid $14 million in the Ricky Kidd settlement, highest in KCPD history. And also in April last month, KCPD reached a $4 million settlement with the family of Cameron Lamb, who was shot and killed back in 2019. That was the Eric DeValcanair case. So just in the last few weeks, you've got $18 million the city has doled out in settlements, and they're basically saying, we can't keep on at this pace, John.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure in my mind, in one of those cases where there's like process and a jury or a judge sends somebody to jail, how's that the police department's fault? That's what I'm questioning on some of these. And we know what happened with Cameron Lamb. That's more directly involved there.
I'm glad you brought that up because I thought the same thing as well.
Okay, I wondered. I'm going to have to look that up myself.
No, I don't. I mean, listen, I think we are in a culture right now that is basically, hey, who do we sue that we can get the most money from?
I have partial answer because I've seen before that Missouri is one state that does not have a fund. So I don't know if the next person in line then becomes the city and the police for any kind of damages sought.
I
believe Missouri does not have anything as a state.
The mayor saying here in a statement that he is calling for further transparency about pending legal exposure, increased state financial support for an agency the state controls, but Kansas City taxpayers fund, and further efforts to prevent future costly settlements. I don't know if the state could cap this stuff. I just know right now the culture is very much pro-lawsuit in Missouri. The trial attorneys have a lot of power down in Jefferson City. So they have created a landscape in Missouri that is very rah-rah lawsuits. It's actually less so in Kansas. And as somebody in the legal community explained to me over the last few weeks, that is actually reversed from where it was several years ago. So that is an about face from where things were on this very topic. So, it's interesting that Lucas, who is a lawyer by trade, obviously, is potentially looking to handcuff his buddies in the law community. But he's right, frankly, to do it because everybody and anybody is suing Kansas City right now. I talked to somebody at City Hall a few weeks ago, and they said, we're getting sued left and right. I mean, every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the water department, and I'm just using that as an example, is suing us looking for a settlement. It's like, give me my $100,000. Give me my $250,000. It's just easy money. And the city can fight this stuff, but either way, that's costing resources and money from you, the taxpayer, to fight these things. So you have a very litigious culture right now in the state of Missouri. I don't know if the state has the backbone to do anything about it, but you've got a lot of attorneys who are getting very rich. And I'm not against people making money. I mean, I'm capitalism 101, and I love all of it. But let's be honest. Some of these lawsuits, especially some of the more prominent ones that you hear about, across any political ideology and spectrum, you've got a lot of grifters behind the scenes that are cashing in a big way. And when they're going after cities, they're really going after you, the taxpayer. That's what they're doing. 913-408-7957. And that's money then that the city can't use for other things. I mean, the city they budgeted about $2 million for $2.5 million is the KCPD budget for settlements and verdicts. Just here in the last, between the kid settlement and the Lamb settlement, that's $18 million right there. I mean, that's unbelievable. 6:15, it's good to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up, we'll get to you, but also the 51st state chatter. It was top of mind again yesterday in the Oval Office with the President of the United States. And, I appreciate the troll, but I don't know if I would really want it anyway. What about you? We'll get to it on 95.7 FM. I so wish I had the audio for you here because it was just fantastic yesterday in the Oval Office. Trump and Mark Carney, new Prime Minister of Canada, sitting there meeting together and talking about, Trump was talking about the 51st state with Canada up to our north, and Carney's like, Canada is not for sale. It will not happen, John.
I know we can't get our internet to work. There's no chance we're on the same circuit as the Vatican here, with the conclave. Cut us off here. We're cut off from the outside world.
I know. It does feel very weird.
I've got a lighter if we need to do any smoke over
here. That's good. Yeah. That's good. If anyone's driving by us on 435 and you're an internet expert, feel free to drop in. We got our crack engineering staff taking care of us here on KCMO. But as a result, I cannot get the fantastic audio of Trump and Carney in the Oval Office yesterday talking about Canada being a 51st state. So Carney made it clear Canada's not for sale. But Trump went on this fantastic soliloquy about how he's a realtor at heart, and for some reason they just drew a line right across North America and said, this is you, Canada, and this is the United States. And it's like he said yesterday, somebody took a ruler and then took a pencil and just drew it straight across. And he's like, torn up about it. And it's fantastic. But Trump also had a tongue-in-cheek attitude about the whole thing. Trump is not looking, I don't think, deep down or expecting Canada to be a 51st state, although he did lay out the benefits to the Canadians. And he took a shot at them while he did it. He said you would get a much better tax climate, your taxes would go down, your health care would improve, and you'd have suddenly the best military in the world. And he's right. He's right about all that.
He threw it in at the end, though. I loved it.
Yeah.
It's like, great tax benefits, blah, blah. And free military. Yeah. Like it's an additional bonus today and today only.
Yeah. Call now. Yeah. And you get the free military as well.
Yeah. Ask about it, right?
Yeah. Promo code Trump 2028 for your free military. So it's just fantastic. And here's the thing. This is what Trump does on his negotiating, right? He says something or he suggests something that he knows is not going to happen. But then what happens on the back end? What happens on the back end is he gets what he really wants, which I believe in this case is a much better trade climate with Canada. Listen, he's ragged on NAFTA forever, right? That's happened since he was in office the first term. The USMCA was a basically renegotiation between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. Does he still think that's the perfect deal? I don't know. But he does want to reset trade relations with Canada. And also, I think there's something inherently where he's trying to make Canada, and it did shift to the right a little bit. Carney was not like the socialist far-left guy. He was kind of your left-of-center Hillary Clinton 2016-esque candidate with like Wall Street ties. I'm not saying he's, a guy I'd be voting for, but I'm saying he was not the furthest left option that existed in Canada. And what you're seeing in Canada is that it was the young people who were the most conservative in this most recent election. Just like we are seeing some trends here in the United States, the younger people are the ones in Canada who are saying enough is enough. With this neoliberalism, it has failed us, and we need to try something different. But Trump wants Canada to improve itself when it comes to immigration. And you heard Carney say yesterday in the Oval Office, well, you didn't, and I can't get the audio right now because of our internet, but Carney said yesterday in the Oval Office that we are a proud nation and we want to have strong borders in Canada. And that was music to Trump's ears. He said as much. He goes, oh, those, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he was like, oh, those are beautiful words, Mark. Beautiful words. It's kind of like what I say to Mark here on the show once in a while. Beautiful input there, Mark. Beautiful words, buddy.
Thank you very much.
You're very nice. You're very welcome. Yeah.
Such a nice man.
So that's what yesterday was really about. It was a chance for Trump to reset this relationship. And I don't think he is in any way serious about the 51st state. I frankly don't want him as a 51st state. I see the value when it comes to like oil and things of that nature, but you would get a very blue state. Potentially. You would get like maybe California. You definitely would get 2 more Democratic senators. There's no doubt about that. Mike's in KCK. What's up, Mike?
Yeah, I know a bunch of Canadians outside of Ontario and Ottawa, Quebec, those areas. They're pretty conservative, and they're really upset about how Trudeau turned the government so far left. There's no free speech, a lot of restrictions over there. You can be harassed by the government for some real simple things we take for granted. And they kind of look upon some of that, whether they really want it or not, but they would like to get some of their freedoms that they had before the country went so far woke left.
Well, you're right about that, Mike. I agree, but it's like similar to what we have in certain states here in America. It's kind of like Illinois, where the state is basically red, but you just have such massive populations in their city areas that the rest of the country cannot overcome those numbers.
And that's exactly what they're upset about. Mm-hmm. I mean, when they had that big truckers thing during the COVID thing, that really scared the socialists over there. Because after that, they started disarming. They passed draconian gun laws. I think it's easier to get a gun in Peking than it is to get in Canada now. And I mean, draconian gun laws, draconian laws on free speech, assembly, all these things have all been due process, have all got eliminated after that big old truckers thing that they had during COVID.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. And listen, our buddy, our old buddy from down the hall, Kelly Urich, Kansas City radio legend. He's going to get a tickle up his leg if he hears me say he's a legend. But he's now up in Canada. I think he's in Alberta somewhere. And we were texting last week during the election, and he's like, man, there is a groundswell conservative movement up here. And he's obviously in Western Canada, which is not near your urban cores and urban hubs. And he's like, yeah, I mean, folks up here are pretty conservative. They just can't outnumber the people in, the Montreals, Ontarios, and places like that. But if Carney's a guy who at least can acknowledge that there is a groundswell of small government and small C conservatives in his country, that will bode well for him. And meeting with Trump yesterday, I think, was a really good sign for not just Trump, obviously, but more so for Carney and how he runs that country going forward. 913-408-7957. News in 2 minutes. We're back with you here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Mike Pompeo, of course, former Kansas congressman and then Secretary of State under Trump 1.0, was just on Fox News. Does anybody believe that Pompeo didn't take Ozempic or one of those drugs? Does anybody believe that Mike Pompeo just actually lost that weight on his own? I mean, I don't care. I'm just saying, he did this whole thing like a year and a half ago about how it was all natural, just work it out. I mean, it looks great. But come on, please. I don't believe for a second that Pompeo did not do Ozempic or one of the other brands. Like, I don't buy it. I'm sorry.
I have a neighbor who I have a question about that as well. He went from like 350 to like 200 in the last like 6 months.
Yes. I mean, Mark, that doesn't happen unless you saw the guy walking around the neighborhood with, weights on his back for 4 hours a day.
No, he just walks to the mailbox and back.
How'd you do it? Oh, that mailbox walk really got me. Started shedding those pounds left and right. Oh, my goodness. Hope your morning is off to a great start on KCMO Talk Radio. If you are a parent or a young parent, you will appreciate that 12:45 this morning, right as I'm hitting my REM sleep, we get our middle one, Chloe, who is climbing into her sister's bed because of bugs. And, I mean, fake bugs, like not real bugs, but insistent that bugs or monsters were in her bed in the top bunk. She climbs into her sister's bunk on the bottom bed. Her sister's getting pissed because she's tired and wants to sleep. She's crying. They're both crying. Mom and dad are up trying to calm everybody down. And between the both of us, we must have went into that room 4 or 5 times last night. Easy. I think it took her an hour to get back to sleep after we had to coax her back into her bed. Glass of water here, some pats there, rub the arm, the whole 9 yards. And then I get in here this morning ready for a big show, Wednesday morning, and boom, internet's out. So we are rocking and rolling old school radio. No text line this morning, just you, the phones. Can't pull the audio that we want to pull. So just a little behind the scenes on my last 6 hours or so. It's been a doozy. But if you are up to the airport this morning, if you are heading that way, just know that the Real ID extra screening is now in place. However, you will be allowed to fly for the time being, according to the Department of Homeland Security. So Americans who do not have their real IDs will still be allowed to fly after the May 7 deadline, which is today. But you will face extra screening and delays at the airport. So if you do not have the real ID, and I've got mine right here. I flew over the weekend, and I asked TSA like 20 times, is this right? Is this right? If you have that little star, gold star, in the right corner of your driver's license, you're okay. You've got the real ID. If you don't have it, then you got to get yourself that real ID. So that way when you fly, first off, if you're doing it in the short term, you'll deal with extra delays and more scrutiny. But there will be a point, I don't know when, Kristi Noem hasn't really given us a new date, but there will be a point when you will not be able to get on the airplane, John.
Well, it's only been 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Since we passed law. I got mine, and I would add that there's the minor sidebar of doing a vision test since mine was associated with the driver's license.
Yes.
I don't know if you do that for a state ID or not, but you would have a quick vision test. Didn't take me that long when I did mine. So,
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you've got your real ID.
I'm good to go.
So we can all go to Vegas. Woo! Woo! Let's go.
Yeah, I just got mine a couple weeks ago. My wife went in at the same time to get hers, and we just had a copy of our marriage license. And since she has a new last name now, obviously, they're like, this isn't going to work. You got to get one from the state. So she's got to go back in a couple weeks to get it.
It's a hassle for married women or change names.
Yeah, that's right. That's tough.
Extra step, I'll say, for sure.
So you want to get this done. Mark's flying, in a few weeks here. So you got to hustle on that, buddy.
I know.
I don't know what Kristi Noem's going to do with this whole thing, but I will say the government, the administration handled this properly. If people are going to the airport today, I mean, we can talk about this ad nauseum, but you know and I know there would have been people who would have shown up today and would not have been able to get on their plane. And it would have been a zoo, as if we need more of that at airports in this country.
Yep.
You would have seen an absolute reckoning at airports around the country. Could you imagine being at O'Hare where like 20% of people probably, and I'm just throwing in a number, maybe it's 10, would not have been able to get on their plane today? You would have had to bring in the National Guard. That's what would have happened at O'Hare.
Absolutely. And if you don't have it and you're leaving here soon, you can use your passport.
Yes.
If you don't have a passport or a gold star, now you're up that creek without a paddle.
Then you're in big trouble. You're right. Then you're not
Bring
getting
your
on
high
that plane.
school yearbook.
Yeah. Come on. Don't you know Tommy Jones from class of 78? Doesn't he work here at TSA or something like that? No, sir. That doesn't get you through. Sorry. Not going to work for you. All right. So you definitely want to be aware of that and just let people know if they are flying in your family, friends, inner circle, whatever it might be, that this is coming. You got to get ahead of this. And while the deadline has been pushed back, thankfully, right move by the administration, eventually there's going to be a drop dead date. And if you don't have the real ID or you don't have the passport, you are not getting through security. you're not going to get through. So make sure that you're on top of that if you are traveling here at some point this summer, which obviously is always a busy season. Now, elsewhere, you have a Trump administration that made an announcement yesterday regarding the World Cup. And, of course, we are hosting World Cup games right here in Kansas City, and that is happening next summer. So Trump makes the announcement yesterday that he has put a group in charge of overseeing the World Cup here in the United States. And he picked Rudy Giuliani's son, Andrew Giuliani, to work as a special assistant to the president and associate director of this group that he is putting together to oversee the World Cup, a task force. He's calling it the 2026 FIFA World Cup Task Force, and Andrew Giuliani is going to be the executive director. Trump talked about it yesterday. I can't pull the audio because of our internet issues here, but Trump said about it, quote, Andrew's going to be great. I've known him for a long time. He's a highly competitive golfer. What that means for his qualifications, I have no idea. But I guess being good at golf is worth something.
The athleticism there. Get on the World Cup.
You should see his swing. You should see that. Oh, that swing from Andrew Giuliani, something else. Which, I mean, really good, Trump says. He's also a highly competitive person, and he loves what we're doing. So we are going to talk to Pam Kramer. She is the CEO of KC 2026. Of course, that's the organization that's overseeing the World Cup here in Kansas City. She will make her first appearance on the show coming up in about 20 minutes. And I will ask her about this news, what it means for Kansas City, and then we're going to try to get Andrew Giuliani on the show at some point. But this is basically a way to have somebody oversee all the cities and all the planning that's happening here in the United States for the World Cup, because we've got 11 American cities, including Kansas City, set to host games. You've got Los Angeles, Boston, Miami, New York, technically New Jersey, all hosting World Cup games, including right here at Arrowhead Stadium. You've got 2 Canadian cities and 3 in Mexico. So now Andrew Giuliani is basically in charge and overseeing this for us here in the U.S. And what impact will that have on Kansas City? Will he come to Kansas City at some point? I mean, I've heard behind the scenes that of all the American cities hosting World Cup games, Kansas City actually has its act together way more than some of the other cities. Now, we're also dealing with some of the most inefficient and poorly run cities in America, like Los Angeles and New York and, to a lesser extent, Boston. But still, you get the point. That's a great sign. So maybe we're like the least of his problems, right? Maybe we're at the bottom of his list. But I got to imagine at some point, he's going to make his way, Giuliani will make his way to Kansas City to see what's going on here. So Pam Kramer, the KC 2026 CEO, will join us just after 7 o'clock. The 6 at 6, top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour, we'll get to next on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. Now, you know what's coming up, right? I mean, if you don't know what's coming up, then you better get on it. Mother's Day. That's right. And yeah, flowers are nice, but they fade. You know what doesn't? Fine jewelry. Celebrate her love, strength, and beauty with a lasting piece that mom will cherish for a lifetime and even pass down to the kids. Whatever her style is, they'll have it at Diamonds Direct, and you will get the white glove service that you would expect from a top-notch jewelry store right here in Kansas City at 119th and Row. Walk on in there and tell Angie and the team that we sent you, and most importantly, don't be intimidated. I know, listen, if you're a guy, we're all intimidated walking into these places. We don't know the product, and we are afraid we are going to get ripped off. They won't do that at Diamonds Direct. They have not done it to me on multiple buying occasions. So every piece comes with complimentary cleanings, sizings, and repairs. So mom's jewelry will be taken care of for the life of the piece. You don't have to worry about that at all. You've got high-quality, hand-selected jewelry at competitive prices. Head on in there now. DiamondsDirect.com is the website, but just go say hi right there at 119th and Row. Kansas City Star running this headline piece titled, "Can a Johnson County Candidate Be Kansas Governor?" The answer to that is yes. But they decide to take the approach of doing the hemming and the hawing and saying, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. But it is entirely possible that the 2026 Kansas governor's race in both parties could feature an unusually large field, and the two finalists on both sides could end up being from Johnson County. Now, no Democrats have announced so far on their plans to succeed Laura Kelly. But there are names that are being circulated out there, and many of them are from right here in Johnson County. On the Republican side, you've got Secretary of State Scott Schwab, Overland Park, former County Commissioner Charlotte O'Hara. They've launched campaigns. You have podcaster Doug Billings, who's running. You have former Republican Governor Jeff Collier, Overland Park guy. He's expected to jump into the race, as they note here. You have other folks who are being rumored, like former Royals GM Dayton Moore, who's getting conversation as well. And that's only scratching the surface, right? There are other names that we are going to hear in the days and weeks ahead who will be launching campaigns for governor of Kansas, and you will have more names from right here in Johnson County. Now, what makes it interesting is that in Kansas, it will show you where you're from on the ballot. When you go vote, you'll see where that person is from. And there's a school of thought that being from Johnson County could hurt candidates when people in other parts of the state go to the polls and say, I don't want a Johnson County person. I don't want to deal with that. I don't trust them. I want somebody who's from Western Kansas. I don't believe that is going to hurt in this specific cycle, especially on the Republican side. I don't. First off, in a general election, and then I'll backtrack from there. In a general election, if you're a Republican voter from Garden City, if you're a Republican voter from Ashland, if you're a Republican voter from Meade, those are all little towns, or not Garden City, but some of the other little towns that I remember calling high school football in 15 years ago. You're not going to vote for a Democrat because the Republican's from Johnson County. The parties are too divided, right? The visions are so different right now that I know, and it's going to happen, they're going to run a Democrat who will insist that they are middle of the road, just like they did with Laura Kelly. I don't think it's going to work in 2026 unless the Republican just really runs a bad campaign, or you get a Gomer Pyle in the mix, right, who ends up trying to ruin it for somebody on the Republican side. Even though 2026 might be a year where there's just some backlash against Trump because the party in power typically has a bad midterm, I don't see that, with the way things stand right now, being enough. Laura Kelly had a very unique set of circumstances. In 2018, when she ran the first time, she got to go up against Kobach, and I like Chris. I think he's really good at what he's doing as Attorney General, but he barely won that primary against Collier. Remember, it took a couple of days for them to figure out who the winner was in that primary. And then, because the Kansas primaries are so late, which I wish they would change, he had basically, 2.5 months or so to race to the finish line. And there was far more of an anti-Trump sentiment in 2018 than there will be, I believe, in 2026. So he's behind the 8 ball. He's going up against Laura Kelly. No one really knows her. She can play the moderate game. I don't believe that there are Democrats in Johnson County right now in the Senate or the House who can play the middle of the road thing that Laura Kelly did pretty effectively a few years ago, because the parties have just changed, and there's so much more out there on what the beliefs are of these people within these parties. I mean, right out of the gates, ask the Democratic nominee, whoever that ends up being, should a guy be allowed in a women's locker room? And you tell me how many people are going to cross the aisle in a state that Trump just won by 15 points and go vote for the Democrat in that situation. I don't think there's going to be a lot of them. So the Democrat will have a big leg up. And then a couple of years ago with Derek Schmidt, I mean, we've talked about some of the issues maybe the campaign had. But the other thing that needs to be noted here is that Laura Kelly was the incumbent. And the incumbency plays a huge role in who wins every election, but especially when you're talking about state politics. People will stick with the incumbents if they think they're doing a halfway decent job. When you get to a fresh slate, that's a totally different story. So that, when it comes to the general, is how I would see it playing out. In the primary, if there's some rock star out in western Kansas or in the Wichita area who siphons off a ton of votes just because of the regionality of the race and the heavy Johnson County field that you've got, then maybe that comes to fruition. But the only name that's really being floated out there that I've heard is Senate President Ty Masterson, and maybe he does it, but I'm also hearing he may not do it. That's just, I'm hearing both sides of that right now. There may be something else that he is interested in doing that could be on the horizon in this state on the political front. So if you just have a loaded Johnson County field, then you know what? Someone from this county is probably going to end up as your nominee. And that person can absolutely win in a general election. Being from Johnson County is not going to hurt any Republican candidate in this field. That will not be the reason they lose if they were to lose. It wouldn't be it at all.